Hey, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Money Talks Wealth Beyond Numbers podcast. I am your host, Dr. Constance Craig Mason, and I am not here alone today. I have a fantastic professional in the mental health and well being space, and I'm sure he'll begin to let you know a little bit about himself in 1 second here. But I just wanted to welcome you all back and just let you know how much we appreciate your viewership, your listeningship because we know that you could be anywhere in the world and listening to us helps us to keep getting our voice out, our message out about how money matters as well as our emotional and mental well-being matters. And so I have Blaise Harris here with me today, and I will just let him give you a slight introduction to who he is before we jump into this fantastic conversation. So Blaise, take it away.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you first for having me, Dr. Constance. I'm really honored to be here. Uh, my name is Blaise Harris. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor here based out of Knightdale, North Carolina. I am an EMDR certified therapist. I am an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a father. I'm a survivor. And I am here just to, shed a little bit of light on the mental health world. And what it looks like, as a Black man showing up in this world.
Well, let me just say that I met you several months ago at an event, the Black Mental Health Conference. So, shout out to the host of that event. But I want to say that this discussion has been a long time coming, particularly because oftentimes we'll think about men as being unemotional, as not opening up. Like it is a lot, and especially on the leaders of the household. So I definitely wanted to bring you in to have a great conversation about the pressures that come upon male leaders of homes, organizations, things of that. And I know that you also are a servant leader in the aspect of being a former firefighter and things of that. So we definitely want to hear what you have to say as it relates to, and I'll just jump right in, you know, masculinity. Can you shed some light on your perspective of this and even maybe even your own experience with it?
So that's it's so many things that can contribute to that feeling. There's one of those things where, you know, growing up, you're supposed to be strong. Big boys aren't supposed to cry. Big boys aren't supposed to have any kind of feeling. You can be angry, but you can't be too angry. You have to still find a way. That was our role. We're supposed to be providers. That's one of those things where we have to be able to show up in the space and make things happen regardless of what's going on. So to answer the question, a lot of this goes back, if you think about it, it goes all the way back to slavery and epigenetics and what this looks like. If the father showed any kind of weakness, he would be beaten, he'd be separated from his family. Um, he could be killed for even showing kind of weakness because he's not, I need you to be strong. I need you to be able to work these fields. I need you to be able to do all of these things because I need you to be sure that you can make me this money. And that's what it is. And so that transfers down the line. Like, I need you to show up anytime. I need you to show up regardless of if you're sick. I need you to show up if you are tired. I need you to show up at your worst moments because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to find a way. You're supposed to make these things happen. And we take that and we run with it. And it's just like, it makes us soft if we do share our vulnerability. The reality is, all the things that we stuff down and push down and push down and push down and push down and they never deal with is going to show up in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And it's not going to be pleasant.
Right.
A lot of times it shows up as outbursts. If we might come off and yell at someone, or we fuss at someone, or it comes out as physical. Somebody says something to me, and I'm not mad at that person per se. I'm mad at something that happened last week, last year, 10 years ago, because I'm not allowed to talk about these things. I'm not allowed to verbalize what's really bothering me. I'm not allowed to really address the issues that have a negative effect on me because I have to be sure that I show up for you.
That is a mouthful. When I often hear people say that we shouldn't use the word supposed to, Right. Because that has its own level of expectations. And like, where are these expectations coming from when we say, I should have done this, I should not have, I supposed to do this, supposed to do that? It makes a person feel like they don't have the liberty or the freedom to, in a moment, decide what's the best way to handle it or what's the best words to use. Where I think that the more we become self aware, then we're able to navigate and articulate to others what our trigger points are, or if we're having a uncomfortable moment. And you were just talking about how difficult it can be for a man or a male to express himself depending on the upbringing and, what expectations have been set upon him. But you have come from a pretty hectic background in terms of being around firefighters, first responders, people who have a lot of weight
Mhm.
on their shoulders in critical moments. What kind of impact does working in a field like that have on men or mental health?
Oh wow. So that's a whole nother episode if you want to get into that. The
Yeah.
thing about it is, again, this supposed to uh mentality, our our mentality is to serve. As first responders, that's our job. Our priority is everyone else. We can't let anything affect us, because if I'm get affected by this car accident that I just attended, that I went to, and I saw these people and they were crushed or whatever, I can't let that bother me, because I might see something worse 5 minutes down the road after I get done with that call. So we are taught to compartmentalize, because our day, we never know what we're going to have from one day to the next. For an example, for me, I remember working a shift, and I had three people code in a shift, and two of those people were talking to me before they actually died. All three of those people died in this one shift. Now, that really bothered me, but I'm not allowed to speak about it because that's the job. You know, So, what are we supposed to do with those feelings and those emotions? Am I just supposed to just suck it up and just keep going? Or, do I talk about what really bothers me about this? And, what we would do is not talk about it. Now, if we had a really bad call, there used to be these things where we would sit on the back of the bumper and they were like, hey, you okay? You okay? You okay? All right, go back to the station. And that's all it would be. Now, now we acknowledge that we need to address these things the way they need to. So there's critical incident stress debriefings where we'll get into a room and we'll assess how everybody's doing. We talk about how everybody's doing. And if they need to take some time off, they take some time off. If they need to mark out a service for a bit, they mark out a service for a bit before they return back to it, because we start to see the toll that this takes on the folks who are doing this job. It's not easy. It's really not. And the culture is, we don't talk about it at home. Once we leave the doors of the fire station, the police station, or EMS station, or whatever, everything that we see is supposed to immediately shut off.
Mm,
And everything that we're dealing with outside of work, as soon as we cross that threshold, is supposed to shut off. How realistic is that?
right.
If you got someone dying from cancer at home, or you're going through a divorce, or you're going through, you know, losing a child, losing a family member, or doing whatever, that doesn't just shut off once you cross these thresholds. If you see go three codes in a shift, and that affects you because these people are begging you to save them and help them, and you can't,
Mm,
that doesn't just shut off once you leave the door. So it's great that we are moving in the right direction of actually addressing these things. But I think a lot more first responders are allowing themselves to be vulnerable, to actually talk about these things, to seek therapy, to seek peer support when these things get to be too difficult to manage on their own.
yeah. It sounds like it can be a great field to be in. It sounds like, especially the life-saving measures that you all participate in, but it can also be traumatic is what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing. And I
Absolutely.
heard you say a word that I had not heard before when you say stress debriefing.
Mhm.
could someone implement a stress debriefing like in their regular everyday life at home? Or could that be something that looks like support or looks like help?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think about the corporate world. I'm not in the corporate world at all. However, I know the stresses that people who are in the corporate world deal with. And like a lot of the things is they deal with stress on a completely different level. And they deal with how to manage their stress in a completely different way than first responders do. So in a way that they can do that, I have a colleague who initiated having a meditation room for when people are stressed. They can actually go into that room, they can sit down, they can play, soft music, they can lay down on the couch, and then they come back out and then they go back to work. You know, Having spaces like that is beneficial for everyone involved. There are other times where people they'll get together during lunch and they'll do walks around the building and it's coming back. Sometimes it's getting outside and getting some fresh air and getting some sunlight. Could be one of those things that really helps you out. And then other times it's just meeting up and just being sometimes it's just it could you could be social with other people who you work with if you have that type of relationship, but also utilizing uh, like an EAP program, the employee assistance program. If your company has an employee assistance program, utilizing those, actually talk with somebody to actually deal with your stress and deal with the things you might be dealing with at work. Most of the time, you get like 6 sessions for free, and those are extremely beneficial for folks who actually have access to those in their companies.
I'm finding that nowadays people are more open to share if they're having a difficult time.
Yeah.
Now, everybody is in a safe space. And like you mentioned, depending on the type of work that you do or the people that you're surrounded by, you would be blessed to be able to have a colleague to walk around the building with or to take your lunch with, because I know we had recently come out of the pandemic space where we were
Oof.
all isolated in one way, shape, or form. So to be able to come back around people and be able to share our common experiences is a way to not let things build up, right? That you mentioned where you don't have an outlet. How can this actually affect your pocketbook or your wallet when you feel like you're struggling, you're stressed out, you may or may not have healthy ways to
Mhm,
release? How can that affect you in your workplace as far as calling out, missing time, not getting paid, or even in business settings where you're not able to go for that client because you're just not in the right headspace?
mhm, mhm. No, that's a good question because the reality is a lot of times we don't have the space to do it. As myself as a therapist now, if I don't work, I don't get paid. That's one of those things. So if I don't have a salary like I used to have with the fire department, if I had a sick day or vacation day, I would still get paid because I actually earned that time. So there are people where it is difficult for them to, especially if you're dealing with an extremely bad depressive episode. It's enough for you to get up and brush your teeth. It's enough for you. You know what I mean? It takes work for you to move from the couch to the bed or from the bed to the couch or from anything because that depression can really take a hold on you where you don't have the energy to do anything. And let's not even think about if there are suicidal ideations involved, or if you are so anxious where you can't leave your house because you're worried about being around other people or being seen by other people or how you're going to affect how those people will affect you if you do show up. There are people who get extreme nausea at the thought of leaving the house, um, or not being able to show up as their best self in any type of space. So yeah, that can affect people's pockets. If you are required to be in the office at all times.
Mhm.
If you work from home, it's a little bit easy. It's still difficult, but it's a little bit easier for you because while we are utilizing, telehealth, or while we're using, Zoom or Riverside or whatever that we use for our conversations or whatnot, there's this barrier. You can't
Mhm.
touch me. Like, I can see you, but you can't
Yeah.
reach out and touch me. I'm not in that same place with you,
Right.
and if worst comes to worst, I can cut my screen off and I don't even, you got to see me when I'm doing it, but I can
Right.
still show up and do my job.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So, it definitely does have an effect. And I think what the pandemic definitely affected us in a lot of negative ways, as far as being social, as far as showing up, and it did really worse for the teens and the young ones, because
Mhm.
we took it took away all of their interactions. Period. But it also allowed us to explore something that was normally not explored, like doing telehealth. That was one of those things in grad school, was like, that's a last resort. You ain't gonna never have to do, telephones or telehealth or any of that type of stuff, because it's not very convenient. And pandemic happened and flipped the script on
Mhm.
everything. And how
Mhm.
many more people have access to these things because of telehealth now? They don't have to leave the house to go get a prescription. They don't have to leave the house to go to the doctor to show up. They don't have to leave the house to be able to do daggone near anything. So, I'm sorry, I danced all around the question. I don't even know if I answered it.
No, no. I was talking about, the stigma
Yeah,
really of
yeah,
mental health and being grateful to be able to socialize even in our workplaces with people who we see as a safe space, because like I said, everybody isn't, but
no,
there has been a stigma for some time around seeking professional help, not just
yes,
going to church, not just
no,
talking to our inner circle,
no,
but really seeking the professional help like yourself, other licensed professionals, even to the level of a life coach, right? I know, they don't necessarily need licenses as you all do, but, I wanted to just ask your opinion on, how does it look to go after professional help? And is this something that is protected in terms of their privacy? And you mentioned telehealth, which is great, but even when you're physically going into an office, how does that look for those who have never experienced that?
Okay, so great question. So, ain't nobody gonna know you coming to therapy unless you tell them. That's one of those things. If like, ain't nobody standing outside the doors. Oh, Blaise is going into that therapist office. I saw you walk into the office the other day, Blaise. What are you doing? Who you going to talk to? You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to know that you're there unless you tell them. The confidentiality is the utmost importance for all of us, even with telehealth. If you want to find somewhere, there's several different ways that you can do it. Where there's options like Psychology Today, where you can type in therapist in your city. And if your insurance, whatever insurance that you use, whatever issues you got going on, you can tell if you want a male or a female, a black male, or whatever for your therapist. So you can use all these qualifications. There are other things like therapy for black men and therapy for black boys, or all of these different aspects that you can search for therapists in your area if you're trying to find people. So what it will look like is, you made a phone call, they offer consultation, do a consultation. See if they're a good fit for you. That's one of the things that I do, offer a free 15-minute consultation to see if I'll be a good fit for you, or if you'll be a good fit for me. Just because you reach out, I might not be qualified to help you with the stuff that you are looking for. Like, if I'm like, for instance, my niche is black men and first responders, and I do adults. If you come to me looking for therapy for an 8-year-old, I'm not the guy that's going to be able to help, because I don't see anyone under 18.
Okay.
So what it will look like is, find about 3 therapists that you like, that you think you might want to reach out to. If they have a consultation, reach out for the consultation and ask questions, advocate for yourself, asking what their qualifications are, asking about their educational background, asking them about how the treatment modalities and stuff that they use to help get the people where they need to be, you know. And then you got those people who's like, well, I tried therapy once and it was a bad experience, so I ain't never doing it again. Okay.
Mhm.
And I followed that up with, it's just like, okay, so let's think about this. If you like shoes, or if you like purses, or if you like clothes, or any type of thing that you have to actually go shopping, do you pick up the first one that you find, or do you try on several pairs? before you find the right one. And they usually say, well, I got to find the right pair. I try on several types. It's the same thing with therapy. Just because you bought a hat one time and it didn't fit your head right, did you stop wearing hats? Or you found a purse that broke, you know, after you used it one time, did you stop wearing purses? Did you stop buying purses? Or you had a car and you had a wreck because the something went bad with the, you know, with the functionality of the car. Did you stop buying cars?
Mm.
Or even worse, you go eat somewhere at a restaurant, it's horrible and it's trash, and you go there all the time, even though it's
Yep.
trash, and you keep going back.
Hmm.
You get these places, such so many chances, but you only get this therapist one time because it didn't help you out the one time that you did it. Don't make sense.
Such a great point.
Uh,
Especially that one about us going and patronizing places where we've had bad experiences and we still keep going back and keep going back. Now, it could be a matter of convenience, or maybe you live in a place where there's not a lot of options, but I think we're now in the climate where we're realizing our power, and our power is in our pocketbook or in our wallet. And so, who we choose to spend our resources with, such as therapy, stores, medical facilities, anywhere we choose to spend our resources, I believe should be intentionally done. Right,
Absolutely.
because that speaks to our level of power. And I love how you were able to give us some practical ideas of how we can seek professional help in a way that allows us to kind of really niche it down. Like if you're looking for help for your children, right? And even special needs
Uh-huh.
children.
Uh-huh.
Or if, like you said, you're looking for help for a black man, particularly in your life, or for yourself as a black man. I know that a lot of times people think about therapy when they think about it, they think, oh, you have to be, depressed, suicidal, have some kind of massive diagnosis. But we've been experiencing some losses,
Uh-huh.
especially recently, with the job losses of people unexpectedly, even for our small business owners, losing grant funding and opportunities. And believe it or not, these are moments that will make you a bit sad or anxious. And depending on what else is happening in your life, it can have a compounding effect
Uh-huh.
on your well being. So, could you share with us, like, in the aspect of feeling like you have a loss, whether
Uh-huh.
it's through divorce or job or funding, you
Uh-huh.
know, how does this relate to even a grieving process,
Uh-huh.
right? Losing
Uh-huh.
someone that you love,
Uh-huh.
how does this show up in our lives where we could recognize some of the red flags of, like, I do need to talk with someone?
So that's grief is grief, regardless
Yeah.
of if you're losing a loved one, a job, finances, or whatever. You grieve the way that you need to grieve. And so, how it might show up, it might show up differently for different people. You might find that you are isolating yourself from folks. You might find that you don't really find a lot of joy in the things that you would normally find joy in. You might find yourself getting defensive with certain things where you weren't getting defensive about stuff. Everything feels like it's an attack. Some other things that you might experience is you are not likely to put yourself out front like you normally would. If you're the person who's always stepping up and talking and being the first person to show up and, hey, come over here and do this, and hey, I'm there, welcome over here and doing all of this, and you find yourself slinking to the background, and you find yourself
Mm,
not wanting to do all these things a little bit more. So those are some signs that, okay, I might want to reach out to some folks. If you find that you are not, what's the best way? I'm not trying to go through all the diagnoses and the things that you might see when it comes to certain things,
mhm.
because it's going to be different for different people. It really and
Of
truly is.
course.
So, but the thing about it is, once you start to feel, sometimes you feel like you are off, and when those days pop up, it's just like, what is going on with me? Like,
Mm,
and people are trying to talk to you. You find yourself getting irritable with folks just talking to you. And
yeah.
it's just like, yeah, that's not me. Or you're finding yourself just like, you know, you are scatterbrained and you're starting to miss things that you wouldn't normally miss. But like, I'm usually on
Mhm,
top of this. Why am I not doing this today? What is
mhm.
going on today? And it's like there's just a few things that you can see, and then other people might start noticing it as well. Hey, you don't seem like you're happy go lucky yourself. Is everything okay?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
start to put it out, and you don't even notice that you doing it.
Correct.
You know.
I love that you touched on a particular word and you were talking about being irritated, right? The other thing is, even in my own experience, because I've been in therapy for several years now and I love it, it has literally changed my life. But yes, irritability,
Mhm.
fatigue, like you just
Ooh,
super drained, just
ooh,
doing hardly anything, you know?
yes,
And
yes.
most times people would think about seeking help when they are sad, but like irritability, brain fog, like you were just talking about, forgetfulness, like these are things that you might not realize in the moment. But like you say, if it's been a couple days, or your mate or your children or somebody that's close to you start saying, "Hey, you okay?"
Mhm,
Maybe that's their way of trying to let you know that something's different. They might not be able to put their hand on it because obviously they're not professionals,
mhm.
but to just give you some insights as to, I am changing. And it'll give you an opportunity to self assess before really seeking out the help to figure out, well, what's changed in my life recently? Is that a good way to kind of think about it? Like for your own self, am I
Yeah,
taking on more work?
yes.
Um, eh, uh, is there something going on in my physical body? Like, how would a person be able to assess for themselves?
Mhm. So self-assessment, it could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing because a lot of times you get people throwing around these buzzwords like, oh, narcissist, or somebody everybody's a narcissist now. Or these
Or
things, or
trauma or trigger.
it's a trauma bond, or I'm depressed, or I'm doing all this type of stuff, and it's just like, do you really know what any of those things gaslighting and all those different
Mhm.
types of things. So a lot of people, they'll throw these buzzwords out and don't really know what's really going on. So how can you do a self-assessment of what's going on with you? I love how you just said, am I taking on more work? Am I unhappy with the way these conversations and stuff are going with my partner? Am I
Mm,
unhappy with the way these conversations are going with with my business colleagues? And I embarrassed that I made a mistake on this type of thing, because a lot of times we allow anger to be the first thing that shows up.
mm.
Anger is such a surface level emotion. We don't recognize that anger can come off like, you might be embarrassed, you might be disappointed, you might be, just you might have felt denied a position because of someone else's qualifications, or because somebody else might not like you. But instead of saying, I'm embarrassed or that I'm upset that I didn't get this position, you just go, and you start, and it doesn't
Mhm.
help thing. It's like you don't really know what's going on. It's like, so when you take those steps back, okay, I'm angry. What am I angry about? Oh, I'm angry about the way that this person looked at me. What am I angry about? What was it about the way this person looked at me that really got me upset? Well, I was reminded of a time where, my mom or my dad, or, a former partner looked at me and said these things to me. So am I mad at this person, or am I mad at this? Oh,
Mm.
I'm mad at this. I'm not mad at this person, which means
Yeah.
I haven't done the work to process this thing from back here, which is still affecting my stuff that's going on currently.
So that reminds me that we've got to be open and honest with our own selves.
Mhm.
And how we are feeling a certain way, but not necessarily being willing to let those feelings take control of us or even take control of that moment. Because sometimes you mess up a moment, you may not be able to repair it or get it back. And it makes me think about our self worth when you talked about you might be embarrassed or even shame, depending on what the circumstances are. And when self worth is low,
Mm,
it creates a whole myriad of issues. And
mhm.
it made me want to ask you about your moniker, the dope black therapist. That's some self worth right there.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
calling yourself dope out the gate. I love it. Where'd that actually come from? And how do you show up for yourself and others as a dope black therapist?
So I'm gonna I'm gonna be completely honest about this. There were so many T-shirts with the dope black therapist on it, just dope black therapist, dope black therapist. I was like, I'm going to be different. I'm just going to put "the" in front of it. And so,
Okay.
because yes, I am a dope black therapist. When people think about the dope black therapist, I want them to think about, oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He can show up as himself, but he also looks like me, and he also, can allow. I'm allowed to show up and be myself in this person's presence. And I think that's one of the things that appealed to me as therapy, because initially I wanted to be a therapist for first responders, because we're not going to just talk to anyone. We're not going to just talk about anything. They can come and tell me the worst things that they've seen, and it's not going to affect me. I'm not going to shy away. I'm not going to be afraid to jump into it. And as a black man, learning that black men don't deal with their own struggles, and they don't process things the way that they need to, I want you to show up as yourself. You can hang your cape up and pick it up when you leave. But when you come in and sit down, I want you to be you. If you cuss like a sailor, cuss like a sailor. If you're a saint, be a saint. If you want to talk hip hop and movies and stuff like this, we can do that. And I've had several times in sessions where we'll listen to Kendrick Lamar in sessions to help process what's going on with folks.
Yeah.
We will sit there and we'll quote movies just to, because we can't find the right words to say what it is, but we'll quote a Eddie Murphy line from a movie or whatever, and it all makes sense. And I think that's one of those things where it makes me feel good knowing that, one, people feel comfortable talking to me about the things that they don't want to talk about to anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be black men, whether it be first responders, whether it be the LGBTQ IA plus community.
Mm-hmm.
Those people come in feeling comfortable, allowing their vulnerabilities to show up. Now, I can't front. Now, sometimes I meet their anxiety or their depression before I meet them.
Yeah.
But once we start breaking down those walls and they realize that, oh, this person is really here to help. Then I'm like, then
Absolutely.
the work can really be done.
Mm. Well, I had the pleasure of talking with you a little bit before this episode, and I was able to try to pull out one of what we call our money talks moments, where it could be something that you could recall that was either a difficult time in your life that you later realized that it was probably a blessing in disguise, or was something that you felt like was sacrificial and you eventually realized that, wow, this was really for my benefit. And I think you had shared something about how, as an entrepreneur and a therapist, there was a time where you had to invest in yourself at a certain level to be able to be the dope therapist that you are, and really dig into how you show up and serve, not just for yourself and your own passion and purpose, but for others. Do you recall that story of you felt like it was, I think it was a retreat maybe
Yes,
that you had gone to?
yes, yes. And so that was one of those things where could, I didn't think that I deserved it. And I think that I didn't think that I was allowed to pay for something, because I've never traveled outside of the country like that before. And two, I've never spent this amount of money on myself for, anything other than school. I saw this retreat for entrepreneurs and therapists to travel to Lisbon, Portugal. And I was like, I'm afraid to do this, but I'm excited to do this. And I went on that retreat and I learned so much about myself and what it's like to travel and to do this thing is on my own from people who've been doing it before. And while I was there working with other people of, composing my profile for Psychology Today, mine had already been, put out, but I made some adjustments because of this, because of the meeting I had, and then helping other people work with through their profiles. And they took that advice that I gave them about, updating their profiles and like being themselves, which I got from someone else,
Hmm.
and how to put myself out there and pitch myself. I took that from another course that I invested myself in, and I was just like learning how to show up and take up space instead of being afraid to take up space. And it's one of those things where it's just like, as someone who's been called cocky and overconfident, you know, by administration in the fire department, I was afraid to take up space. And after investing in myself and, taking that trip to Portugal and taking that course, I want to take up all the space that I can because I'm allowed to. And just because you're afraid of how big that I can be doesn't mean that I should minimize myself to make you comfortable.
That is such a mouthful. And I will say too, even in my field, in the financial services, financial planning, investment advice space, I call myself a unicorn. There's less than 3% of me, which are Black female licensed investment advisors. And so I navigate in a lot of rooms where I might be the only person that looks like me. I have tried to fit in corporate spaces. And similar to you, I guess I had gotten above myself, with what it was that I was trying to share and add to the environment. And sometimes you do have to break out on your own. But when you do break out on your own, you don't have this roadmap before you. At least in certain spaces, you could follow the leader,
Mhm.
but you are the leader now. Getting the opportunity to invest in yourself, knowing that it's uncomfortable, knowing that it's sacrificial in a lot of ways. Sometimes you have to leave your family to go to certain spaces to learn and grow and get around your peers. But what it does in you, not just for your business, but in you, as you mentioned, is unquantifiable.
Mhm.
The level of confidence that builds within you to take the leap and pay the money and then take action right away, such as updating your profile or even coming back and sharing some of that with others who couldn't make the sacrifice to go. That makes you feel good as well. I'd love to, in our last few moments, just really help our listeners to know how you show up and serve. I heard you say you typically deal with adults, but is there anything that you're launching right now, something that we should be on the lookout for, or how can we reach you if we do find that we need your support?
Oh, so it's a couple of different ways. So what's coming up is I am hosting a Black Father Summit on August the 2nd, which is going to be at the Southeast Raleigh YMCA from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's, it's a good event for Black fathers, grandfathers, uncles, cousins, father figures to come out. And we are going to address not only our mental health, but our physical health as well. Free blood pressure screenings, free diabetes checks as well. This is a free event, so for people to show up to do. There's an opportunity where I'm actually speaking internationally in Edinburgh, Scotland, with the people who I went to Portugal with. So that'll be happening in July. Um, I host a men's group twice a month, and that's another free group for men to join. The next group will be on June the 12th. Those are Thursdays from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So there's a lot of good things that are happening. And if people want to find me, they can always visit the website at thedopeblackTherapist.com to find out all about that information. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's the_dope black therapist. That's where you find pretty much everything that's going on with me uh, and what I do in the community. And
Wow. Well, I just wanted to give you my personal thanks for coming on to the platform, really just being authentically you, sharing a bit about your story and how you have navigated your own self worth in a lot of ways, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a Black man in the mental health and first responder space, letting us know what it looks like to pursue help for yourself. It's confidential, it's totally intentionally up to you how you begin to heal in certain areas and us finding our own worth purpose and passion in this space allows us to serve in the ways that we think we're serving, but we don't always recognize when we're shifting a bit, something's becoming overwhelming. And it is really honorable for us to be able to have certain people in our space that we can trust to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, you might want to take a step back, you might want to pursue a conversation with someone. So I just thank you for taking the stigma off the conversation, just for the mental health professionals in general, to give y'all flowers, because I really appreciate you. Like I said, I've been in therapy for several years, myself and my husband as well. We have our individual sessions and we have our session together as a couple.
It's awesome.
And it has really changed my life. So I think that that is part of the passion too, where I'm able to tie money and mental health and emotions into one pot on this Money Talks platform. So I just wanted to give you your flowers for coming on and invite you back. If you do have some other great initiatives that you find throughout the rest of the year, let us know. We want to plug that. I will make sure that we put any links that you provided in our show notes, so that people can find you, support you, follow you. And I just wanted to sign off on our Money Talks Wealth Beyond Numbers podcast episode. Until the next time, you all take well care of yourselves, and we'll talk again really soon.